Welcome to the Walters Agency Podcast, where insurance meets peace of mind. Hosted by licensed insurance agent and owner Timothy Walters, we're here to help families, homeowners, and small business owners throughout East Tennessee protect what matters most. Our mission? Creating win-win-win solutions for insurance. Let's dive in.
Before the next big storm hits, do you know if your roof is really covered or if your policy could leave you footing the bill? Timothy Walters shares what every homeowner should understand before choosing roof insurance. Welcome back, everybody. Skip Monty, co-host / producer, here in the studio with Timothy Walters, licensed insurance agent and owner of the Walters Agency. Timothy, how's it going?
Going pretty good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. On this, it's colder than I like. It's at least the sun's out. That's a positive, right?
I had to break out the jacket this morning.
That's right. At least we don't have a hurricane or a storm that might rip our roof off. When we had Helene come through last year, I did lose a bunch of shingles on my house, and I'm now learning the value of roof insurance. And I've got a big pile of new shingles in my driveway getting ready to get put on. So very interested. What are the most important factors to consider when you're shopping for roof insurance? What should I have done to begin with?
Well, your roof insurance, of course, is typically going to be bound up with your homeowner's insurance. It is important to know whether or not the roof is covered at replacement value or depreciated value, actual cash value. That's something you can ask your agent. It should also be marked on your policy or the quotes that you're getting from the agent for the homeowner's insurance. The difference between the two is replacement value basically says that the insurance company, if you do suffer a loss on the roof, they're going to repair or replace the roof without accounting for the age of the roof. If you have actual cash value, depreciated coverage, then they're going to depreciate the value of the roofing materials based on how old it is. So, if you have a shingle roof that was replaced 10 years ago and you have an actual cash value, depreciated endorsement on the policy, then they're going to devalue by 10 years. And if you have a 30-year roof, no such thing, that basically devalues it by a third, right? That's an easy calculation you can make. Then you got your deductible, of course. Some companies will talk about, they pay full cost of the labor. Well, yeah, they will, but the insurance is all about the material. So replacement value, on the other hand, if you have a 10-year-old roof and, a hailstorm comes along and rips it, or a hurricane, lifts it off of your house or whatever, then the only thing you're really paying out of pocket is going to be the deductible, which is a big difference. So that's important. The other thing that I advise people to consider when they're looking at houses or they're looking to replace their roof, regardless of whether the insurance is paying for it or not, is the roof material. You and I talked about this off camera a while back. They don't make shingles like they used to. I've noticed this the last 20 years or so, the quality of shingles has gone way down. They degrade a lot faster, it seems. I see roofs that I know were placed 10 years ago. They look like they're 15 or 20 years old, with all the gravel being lost and all that kind of thing. And then you see roofs that were actually replaced 20 years ago that almost look the same or in better shape than the newer ones. It's crazy. So I've been advising people to consider metal roofs. If they're properly installed, they're good investments. They're great for insurance ratings. Insurance companies love a good metal roof. And they have really interesting designs now. Some of them even come out looking like they are shingle with patterns they make. It's kind of neat. I've seen some of those lately. So that's important, the material. And of course, higher quality shingles can also make a difference. But the last thing is definitely, and this kind of goes back to it, but just the type of roof. Like some people are going to know what I'm talking about, some people aren't. Like a difference between a gable roof and a hip roof, for instance. The design of roofs can actually make a difference on how well they stand up to, say, winds. Some types of roof design are made to stand up to wind damage better. So all that can be taken into account. It's all good things to look at. And if you have a good insurance agent or a good roofing specialist, if you're looking to get your roof repaired or replaced, they can give you a lot of good details on what might be a good, effective investment if you're just replacing a roof or looking at it to buy a house with a particular type of roof, or if you've had an insurance claim and you're say, hey, how can I lower my insurance rates, or how can I make sure that I'm being as cost effective as possible with the roof material and design and all that kind of thing.
Hmm. Well, you mentioned metal roofs. Are there certain materials that are considered riskier than others?
Well, I mean, most metal roofs these days, last 20 years or so, are pretty well standardized in most cases. You have your painted ribbed roofing materials. Some like commercial buildings, you might see some heavier duty gauge steels for like commercial buildings. Aluminum, of course, can be used, but most of the ones you see on residential houses are pretty well standardized these days, from what I can tell, just from observation, what I see in my line of work. Now, let's put a little disclaimer here. I am not a roofing guy. I'm not in construction. Do not call me to put a roof on a house. I will not be able to do that for you. But like I said, in almost 15 years of being in this business, from what I've seen for metal roofs, they are pretty well standardized in most cases for residential properties. You can put them on as overlays. If you have an existing shingle roof, you can actually have them installed over it, which, unless there's some serious issues with the shingle roof, that's actually not a bad way to do it. Gives you a little bit extra layer of protection and insulation. Or they can be installed just as a metal roof with nothing under it. Usually, what I see, people are getting them overlaid over the existing shingle roofs, though. And
Wow.
if it's done correctly, there's no issue with that. You want to make sure you have a licensed and bonded contract to do that.
Oh, well, I wish we had done this episode about 3 months ago, because I would be going with a metal roof, man. Unfortunately, I've got 2 pallets of shingles out in my driveway, but honestly,
Hey, man, 10, 15 years, you get you another one.
yeah.
It's all good.
Now, something you said earlier caught my attention. You said there is no such thing as a 30-year roof. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, I'm going to have roofing guys come after me on that, I think, but it's just my way of saying it. Nothing lasts forever. You can have a brand new roof placed on your house, and a tornado could come by tomorrow and tear it off,
Right,
right?
right.
But what I'm really talking about is the degradation of shingle roofs, especially. Any physical material is going to degrade over time. Shingle roofs, especially, are prone towards just the constant loss of gravel and the integrity of the shingles. They're more prone to be lifted off in a heavy windstorm. After a windstorm, a lot of people walk around their houses, they see the gravel from the shingles all over the place, or maybe even actual shingles that have been lifted off. And honestly, unless there's like a huge amount of unless it lifts, a lot of shingles off, uh, that's really not something you necessarily want to file an insurance claim for. You can just go out and get some spare shingles, go out there and put them on. Or my dad and I used to put tar out over patches on our roof, when I was younger. Um, but like I said, it's just that they are more prone to degradation. So I always kind of get a kick, especially these days, when I hear, the advertisers, oh, this is a 30-year roof. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know, maybe
Maybe.
depending on the weather conditions and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do. And I do. Again, I'm not a roofing guy. I'm just kind of speaking off my own experience in this business and as a human being who lives in houses with roofs on them. But I do think the quality of the shingles, by and large, seems to have gone down, and they do seem to degrade a little bit faster than they used to.
I would
Without,
agree with that, but
again,
I think I told you.
unprofessional professional opinion.
Yeah, mine's totally unprofessional, but from experience, the last house that I owned in North Carolina, the roof was put on in 2005, I think, and when I left in 2019, and it was in incredible shape. The inspector said your roof's in great, great shape to be as old as it is. Moved into this house, this roof is only about 12 years old, and every time there's a storm, I pick up at least 10 shingles off the ground. So I hear
Yeah.
you. I think you're right.
And I don't think again, I think it's to the material, not necessarily to the guys putting it on. I mean, there's some great roofers out there. I think just the material that they're able to buy, again, because, there's inflation's killing everybody. Everybody's wanting everything cheaper. Well, yeah, that's great. But at a certain point, cheaper means lower quality.
Yep.
That's the world we live in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the
Well,
most common roof types we
we could,
see around here are definitely shingle and metal.
I don't see many shake roofs. I used to live in California, and there's a lot of shake roofs. Are you familiar with those? They're like shingles, but they're made out of wood.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've seen a few over the years. Back when I started my career with State Farm, we had to go out and do inspections on every house that we wrote ourselves. And I saw a few. You don't see many of them around here, though.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen one until I moved to California, honestly. Never seen a swamp cooler either, which is an alternative to air conditioning. But anyway, we could talk about this for a long time. Maybe we can touch on roofs again in another episode.
Yeah, no, like I said, there's a lot to talk about, especially with the market the way it is. So
absolutely. Well, we'll do it.
And I'm an insurance nerd, so we'll do it again sometime.
All right, man. Tim, appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Walters Agency Podcast. Ready to find the right coverage for your home, business, or family? Call or text 423-417-2070 for a free 20-minute consultation. Until next time, stay covered, stay protected, and keep winning with the Walters Agency.